Welcome to the reMothering Masterclass and Super-Summit Event. We are here in step number 1 of the reMothering Roadmap Framework, which is reMothering Foundations. And in this talk, we'll be covering what is reMothering, what it isn't, as well as the reMothering Roadmap Framework so that you can get a lay of the land and an overview of the terrain that we're about to be traveling on together. And more importantly, so that we can set you up for thriving forward with a powerful sense of self-alignment. In case we haven't met before, I'd love to start by introducing myself so you can have some context for who you're learning with. Hi, I'm Simona. My full name is Simona Vivi Haji George Ellis, and I'm a globally recognized coach specializing in the remothering journey. I'm also the founder of remothering.org, this space that was created to bring together the wisdom from across modalities, practitioners, and healers to be a resource for all of us on our remothering journeys. What is remothering? I'd love to start us out with a one-liner, but as I'm about to say this sentence, I'd also like to invite you to just imagine a giant asterisk after the sentence I'm about to say. Are you ready? The remothering work is about cultivating and improving our relationship with ourselves. And here's that asterisk. I want to name right up front that for some of us, we have an internalized voice that kicks in right away and scoffs at the idea of self-anything, or that the idea that a relationship between our own two ears is important and not selfish. So let's just acknowledge that that might be present. And here's some hard and a little bit cringy news to take in, but it's really important to hear this. It's the places where we don't love and accept ourselves that we can become tender, and that's how we can inadvertently leak our stuff onto the people we love most in this world. And I know that's a little bit cringy to look at. It's a little cringy to think about. But the good news and the end also of that is that it is our ability to surf those uncomfortable feelings that opens the door for healthier, better, more robust relationships with ourselves, with others, and with reality. And that's a little big. So I'd love to invite us all to pause for a moment and really take that in and perhaps take a deep breath, because our brains need a balance between feeling safe and feeling a certain amount of stress to be able to learn something new. And so I say that in hopes that I just offered you both. Now I'd love to continue this exploration of what remothering is with some definitions, starting with an informal definition and then a formal definition. My informal definition of remothering is that it's a form of self-care. It's a path of turning within to access the nurturance and wise counsel and belonging and acceptance and protection and love and care, and that sense that someone has our backs and loves us as we are and as we are becoming, and warm regard, and all of the other mother qualities that we humans naturally seek and may or may not have had modeled for us when we were growing up. The formal definition is that remothering is a process and a practice of updating patterns and rewiring with intention so that we can turn within to access the mother qualities we seek. Because of the way our brains process information, before we unpack that definition, I'd love to share with you a story about how remothering.org came to be, which has a lot to do with my own personal history. Chronic misattunement was and is a major theme in my relationship with my mother. And one of the ways my young mind interpreted that misattunement was that I would be doing life right. And if you're just listening and not watching, that right is in air quotes, but I would be doing things right if I did things her way. So if I was going to do things not her way, I'd better be well prepared and planned so that I could do whatever my way was as perfectly as humanly possible, or be prepared to be judged. Throughout my early adulthood, and I should probably say for the first part of my adulthood, that was one of more than one, of the unhelpful and unconscious learnings that played a role in my relationship with reality because it played a role in my perception of the world around me. And you might have just seen me do that gesture. It took a lot of work to take that learning from my implicit memory, to bring it to the light of my conscious mind to be examined. When I did, it was like taking off a weighted vest that I didn't even realize that I was wearing. And I want that for you. We all hold these knowings below the level of our conscious awareness. And when we work towards internal safety and some of the other things we'll be learning throughout this remothering masterclass, so that we can improve our relationship with reality, so that we can hold uncomfortable things, so we can explore our implicit knowings and the history colored glasses that we see the world around us, we can all take off those weighted vests that we've been carrying around. And I like to say we can shed the adaptations, but we can keep the hard-earned wisdom. And we'll be talking about how to do that throughout this masterclass. The way that life lesson shows up in terms of how remothering.org came to be is that when I started my private coaching practice at the Center for Remothering, it felt extremely important to me to also nurture a space of collaboration across modalities, practitioners, and healers for all of us in the remothering community, so that we can explore different resources and notice which are resonating with us in this moment or in this leg of our journey. Because there is, in fact, more than one way to thrive forward. And I'd like to invite you to really take that in, that there's more than one way to thrive forward. I'm chuckling because I'd also like to add in a little nuance if you're ready. While there's not one right way, a high-level roadmap can really be helpful, which I know because my own journey to get here was very long and very winding and very zigzagged, which I'd like to share with you a little bit. Though I will like to say right off the bat that though it took me a very long time to get here, based on the results I've seen my clients have, as well as some of the beautiful emails I've received from past remothering masterclass participants, it absolutely does not have to take as long when you have a roadmap you can follow. And that is what we'll be learning throughout this remothering masterclass. Let's start with my journey. And again, the reason I shared this story is because the way brains process information, we have some parts of our brain that speak in words and other layers of our brain that speak in story and metaphor, and still others that communicate to us through sensation in our bodies. And in order to learn a concept that's as important to our possibility of thriving forward as this remothering work is, it's helpful to learn by speaking to all the layers, by communicating with all the layers of our brains. And so I will share with you that I stumbled very ungracefully onto my own remothering journey when I was 2 weeks pregnant with my second child and going through an unexpected divorce. And it was not one of those graceful, wise, intentional decisions. It was life inviting me to face some of the things that had been hiding in plain sight. At that time, I was so deeply programmed to be good and to be not selfish and to not include myself in the equation that I had lost part of my connection to my essential self. And without a roadmap or even language to describe what I now call the remothering journey, I spent a lot of time stumbling, really stumbling my way forward. When I started my journey, I was running adaptations like fixer and helper and pleaser and reflexive caretaking. and a belief that I had to achieve both to reflect well on my mother as well as to earn love. I also had a deep discomfort of being mischaracterized, which led to perfectionism and overfunctioning and overworking, as well as an unclear sense of what a boundary was, as well as some of the other adaptations that we'll be learning about and talking about in step number 3, where you'll learn how to spot your unhelpful adaptations. But having traveled that zigzag journey, I eventually found relief and liberation from that crushing guilt and unkind self-talk. And I was able to free myself from many, though not all, and no myth of perfection here, but I was able to free myself from a lot of the misguided programming that was no longer helpful to me or the people I love most in this world. And even though it took me a really, really long time to get here, as I was stumbling forward and making loads, and I mean a lot of mistakes along the way, I really want you to know and take this in. I already said this once, but I think it's important for you to know what's possible. Based on the results I've seen my clients experience and based on what past masterclass participants have shared with me, it does not have to take as long when you have a roadmap you can follow. And that is what you'll be learning here in this remothering masterclass and super summit event. So let's unpack that definition of remothering now so that we can set you up for the journey ahead. Remothering is the process and practice of updating patterns and rewiring with intention so that we can turn within to access the mother qualities we seek. It's a process in that there are steps we can take, and we'll be learning about those steps throughout this remothering masterclass. And while the steps, the way we'll be learning them, are linear to make the learning more accessible and digestible, there's not a single track path here. These talks are designed to work together, and they're also designed to each stand alone. Because yes, there's a process, but we each come from somewhere, which means the information that we need and will connect with in this moment will be individual. And what I've seen enough times is that folks connect with the information they are most meant to hear at this moment in time. To that end, one of the invitations I have for you is to take a look at all the talks and notice what's really calling you. And if it feels comfortable to your system, I'd like to invite you to commit to checking out the descriptions for each and every talk. The end also of that invitation is that this is a no should zone. You're equally welcome to say yes to or to say no to that invitation or any other invitation I offer, which for those of us in the community that have a people-pleasing adaptation, we may not have yet had the opportunity to viscerally know the difference between an invitation and an obligation. Everything you'll hear throughout this remothering masterclass is an invitation, which gives all of us an opportunity to exercise our choice muscles. Let's also talk about what remothering isn't. Remothering isn't a report card on the parenting we did or did not receive. And while it's true that our personal histories will play a role in our remothering journeys, rather than being externally focused, remothering is about our relationship between our own two ears, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship between me and me. With that in mind, let's take a look at the journey that's waiting you as we talk a little bit more about the remothering roadmap framework that we'll be following throughout this masterclass and Super Summit event. There are 6 steps in the remothering roadmap framework. We're here in the remothering foundation step right now as you get oriented. In step number 2, which is healing brain states, you'll learn to work with your body's biology and inherent wisdom. And you'll learn why we can't always logic our way forward and the tools and insights for what does actually work instead. The reason we'll want to be talking about healing brain states so early in the process is because when we get to step number 3, which is recognizing our adaptations, there can be some uncomfortable moments as we begin to see with greater clarity the high cost of some of our adaptations. So knowing how to and getting better at surfing those uncomfortable feelings sets you up not just for step 3, but for thriving forward in self-alignment. It's an important part of the process. In step number 3, you'll be learning how to spot and recognize your adaptations, because what we can't see can and does affect us, and it affects the people around us. But the empowering news is that once you spot them, you can use the tools that you'll be learning throughout this masterclass to shift from reflexive to intentional. And when there's more choice, you can shed the adaptations, but keep the hard-earned wisdom. In step number 4, you're going to learn how to master faster access to your inner wisdom, and we'll also focus on how to deepen your inner connection so that you can turn within to access the mother qualities we humans all naturally seek. And along those same lines throughout the masterclass, you'll be hearing about the remothering moments, which are those micro experiences of us being there for us in a way that actually increases our ability to be able to navigate nuance and the complexity of the human adventure, all of which set us up for better relationships with ourselves and with others and with reality, all of which sets us up for thriving forward in self-alignment. And then in step number 5, you'll learn how to break free from outdated programming that no longer serves. And you'll also learn how to disentangle from emotional traps. And again, all of this work is to set you up to thrive forward in self-alignment, whatever self-alignment looks like and feels like for you. For some of us, thriving forward in self-alignment feels like ease and liberation and relief. For some of us, it may feel like quieter self-talk or a self-kinder mind or less hijacked thoughts or a greater sense of clarity and purpose. And I'd like to invite you right now to notice, what does thriving forward in self-alignment mean for you? Really notice that and take it in. And I'd like to invite you to notice, how does it feel in your body when you think about that version of you? How does that feel? In the masterclass sessions of step number 6, we'll be talking about relational well-being, and you'll also be learning tools for healthy and aligned boundaries, because part of thriving forward is taking this work that you've just done and going out into the world with other humans, some of whom have started to do their own work and some who have not. So now that you're oriented, I have 3 integration prompts for you designed to set you up so that you get the most from your remothering masterclass and Super Summit event experience. I'm going to put on my glasses and I'm going to read these to you. You ready? The first one is to notice what you're taking for yourself from today. What's feeling important here? And I'd like to invite you to do that now. Just take a moment and pause and notice what's feeling important. The second invitation I have for you is to review the list of talks and notice which ones are calling you the most. And if it feels comfortable to your system, I'd like to invite you to commit to doing that review of the talks either today or tomorrow, so that you can signal to yourself your intentions for this masterclass, and more importantly, your intentions for what it looks like and what it feels like to thrive forward in self-alignment. And the third and final integration prompt, an invitation that I have for you, is to think forward to the post-masterclass version of you and notice, what advice do they have for current you? What do they want you to know? And with that, I will say goodbye for now, and I will see you in the next class. Bye for now.